Good morning. It's early, 6:15 in the morning. It is Monday, November 21st, a few days before Thanksgiving. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on scanning, spelled Sqanning. Scanning, which is a completely made-up word, but references the concept of scanning, as in scanning the body. Scanning, as I define it, is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension. And repeat that, the incremental release of muscular tension, just a little bit, to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. That's it. Scanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. And I emphasize this because what we're going to be doing in these sessions is letting go of tension, particularly muscular tension. And I emphasize incremental because what is important for you to absorb and understand about this concept is that even the smallest amount of release of tension is a victory in this technique. Because you can't contract and expand at the same time, and we're going to talk about more of that in a second. You can't make a fist and release a fist at the same time, and this concept is all about the difference between contraction and expansion. Any amount of expansion reverses the contractive process. Okay, so I've said that, so now let's backtrack a little bit. All this technique is based on the ideas of a man named Thaddeus Golas, who wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. It's a little 70-something page book, which I read decades ago. I just fell in love with him. I've never stopped reading it since. I probably read it once a day. And in it, he says the universe is broken down into two basic processes: contraction, make a fist; expansion, let go. Contraction, squeeze your hands together; expansion, let go. And we move between those two processes in life. We contract, we expand, we contract, we expand. And if you accept this premise, you begin to look at everything in life and see whether it is in a contracted state or an expanded state. And that includes you, your very being, your frame of mind, your sense of physical being is either in a more contracted or expanded state. So think about that. Let that kind of sink in. Read the book if you have a chance. It's a little metaphysical, but there are parts of it which make absolute sense. And begin to understand that and begin to look at the world and yourself through that lens and see what it does for you. For me, it's been a tremendous, tremendous help in my life because we tend to become overly contracted in life. So what is contraction? The bringing together of thoughts, materials, substances, ideas, intention to achieve a goal or to create something. This shirt is a contraction. They brought together materials and arranged them in such a fashion as to keep me warm, comfortable. My career as an actor is a contraction, the decision I made to bring together certain forces, agents, techniques, practices to achieve a goal, to have an acting career, to make money, to enjoy what I do. So we contract all the time. Basically, we get up in the morning, we start contracting. I just worked out. That's a contraction. That's the simplest definition of contraction is muscular contraction. I'm going to talk about that in a second too. So we spend a lot of time contracting, but we don't spend enough time expanding. So we become imbalanced. What we want is center. We want as much expansion as contraction. We tend to get into the habit of contraction. It's a habit. We get up and do, achieve, work, assemble. And we forget that to be balanced, we need to do the opposite. Let go, release, become neutral, permeable, open, accepting, silent, still, calm. Now we instinctively know that. I need to relax. I need a drink. I need a vacation. We instinctively know when we've over-contracted, and there are things we do to help us expand. This technique, scanning, is just another tool, another way to do it. I developed this for myself because I tend to be a very contractive person. I think too much, I do too much, I can never stop moving or fidgeting or whatever. And I realized it was making me unhappy, particularly my mind, my thoughts were obsessive. And I developed this technique to have a tool to allow me to expand, to balance myself, to come to a place of silence, stillness, calm, neutrality, openness, awareness, peace, happiness, joy. What I discovered in exploring this was that the muscles were a perfect metaphor for this expansion-contraction continuum. Muscles can either do one of two things: contract, make a fist, expand, release. They can't do both at the same time. So rather than try to think myself out of a, let's say, bad mood or sad state of mind, I decided to use the muscles to guide me there. Muscles don't think. The brain is very complex, and it can do circles around you no matter what you're trying to do. And thinking is a contractive process. I discovered that if I could just focus on the muscles, releasing muscular tension, bring myself into a more expanded state through this musculature, this muscular apparatus, I could guide myself into a more expanded state. As you release the muscles, the body becomes infused with a sense of expansion as you practice this technique, which in turn ultimately influences the mind, which, like a muscle of sorts, holds on to, with a very tight grip, thoughts, worries, concerns, and all the things that our mind does to us to screw with us. And the mind begins to expand and relax, and what happens? It loses its grip on all these obsessive thoughts, and they just float away. When you've had a successful scanning session, some go better than others, you'll find yourself not thinking about anything. You'll just have a sense of calm, of being, of stillness, openness, emptiness, which makes you more at peace, which clears your mind, which makes you, in fact, available to what the universe has to offer. You've cleared away all the debris of obsession and worries and thoughts, and you have clarity. So that's what we do. Scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve this state of deep emotional, mental, and physical calm. Physical, it relaxes your body. Emotional, it allows you to feel what you're feeling rather than being constricted and afraid of those feelings. They flow. And mental, it clears your mind. Enough of an introduction for today. Let's get started. We start every session the same way, with a series of deep breaths followed by stillness and silence. And it's a very simple reason. Breaths are expansive by nature. It's the simplest way to bring yourself into an expanded state. And I always say, if you take nothing else from these sessions, if you remember that deep breaths, stillness, and silence will expand you, bring you to a calmer state, you'll have achieved a lot. And I'll be very happy to have shared that with you. Stillness, because we tend to be active, motion, doing is contracting. And silence, because we tend to think words, thoughts, ideas, we talk, those are contractions. Deep breaths, expansion, stillness, expansion, silence, expansion. So we're going to start with 3 deep breaths, followed by 15 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. And it's important that you not move a muscle. I really want you to experience what true stillness is like. Not stillness like this, stillness like this. Almost freakishly still, like if someone saw you that there was something wrong with you. I want you to experience the contrast, and this is what we'll be looking at, the contrast between being in an active, contractive state and a still, expanded state. And as you begin to understand the difference and really feel the difference, you can more readily go to that expanded state. It'll become more familiar territory. You know, I always say we've created a lot of contractive habits in our life. Well, here we're trying to create some expansive habits. So I'm going to start with 3 deep breaths, deep as you can, followed by 15 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Here we go. 3 deep breaths. 15 seconds. Absolute stillness and silence. Deep breath. And just pay attention to whatever changes you're experiencing. Again, we're trying to build our awareness of what it is to be in an expanded state versus a contractive state, so that you can more readily move between them. We need to contract. That's how we get things done. Contraction is beautiful. I just did a play. I had to learn lines. I had to sing. I had to learn blocking. I had to engage with other actors. I had to think about what my intention was as a character. That's a lot of contracting. It's fantastic. That's how we put on a show. What we're trying to do is find the opposite, the balance, which is of equal value, expansion, because expansion opens you up to possibilities so that you can be refueled for your next project, endeavor, contraction. We're going to take this further now. We're going to do 5 deep breaths, followed by 30 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. So we're just stretching the balloon. We're expanding further and further. 5 deep breaths, 30 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. Deepest yet. 30 seconds, absolute stillness, silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. I just had a wonderful thing happen to me, which happens sometimes when I start this expansive process. I lost count. I was counting 30 seconds and suddenly I forgot to count. That's an excellent sign. If you forget where you are, what day it is, what you were doing, if you suddenly drift, you've expanded. Because what are all these things? Time is a contraction. It's the division of the passage of time into seconds, minutes, hours. When you're expanded, you don't need any of that. It's just now. When you forget what it is you're doing, it's because you've decided to let go of whatever that thing is you were thinking about. And if you've ever had an obsessive thought or worry about something in the middle of the night, you couldn't stop thinking about it, you know what a wonderful feeling it is when you're finally able to let it go. So there's that. So again, pay attention to these changes. Pay attention. We're getting better and better at moving into an expanded state. We're going to do the last series of breaths. This time we're going to do 7 deep breaths, followed by a full minute, 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. And I'm laughing at myself because I so rarely sit still in the course of a day and do nothing that it's amazing. After all these years and hours of doing this, it's still somewhat challenging, but I always feel that shift. So watch for that. We're moving from contraction to expansion. 7 deep breaths, full minute, count to 60 slowly, absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. 7. Last one. 60 seconds. Deep breath. And again, just registering the change, whatever changes you may feel. Everyone's different. You'll have a different experience of this. Some people go deeply into a state of expansion immediately. Some people it takes longer. As I said, I'm a very contracted person by nature. So even after all these years of practice, it still takes me a while. But I will, again, repeat that the very simple act of deep breaths, stillness, and silence are tremendous tools. If, again, you take nothing else away from this scanning session, please remember that. Anytime you're feeling bad, basically, or unhappy, or sad, or depressed, or anxious, find a corner somewhere where you can sit and take a series of deep breaths. They don't have to be loud or anything. Just take a deep breath, let it out, do a series of them, followed by stillness and silence, and then do more breaths, followed by more stillness and silence, and see what it does for you. All we're doing is moving the continuum from contraction to expansion. Again, you can't contract and expand at the same time. So the more you invest into expansion, the more you are moving away from contraction. And you're not trying to move there permanently. You're just trying to bring yourself that balance, equal amounts, contraction and expansion. So that's the preliminary steps of scanning. Now we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of scanning, and that is, as we said in the very beginning, the incremental release of muscular tension. Going from this, make a fist, tight, 3, 2, 1, release, incremental release. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. Just do what it feels like. Identify that as contraction. And on my count, release, 3, 2, 1, and release. That's expansion. You can do that anytime during the day to remind yourself, am I contracted or expanded? Can I expand? Take a deep breath. Never underestimate the power of even the smallest amount of expansion. Because if you're moving this way and you start to move this way, you stop contracting, if only for that moment. And you'll get better and better at staying with that expansion until you'll be able to more deeply invest some time into it, a half hour, an hour, and you could bring yourself into a deeply expanded state. There's nothing like it. That sense of peace and calm that comes over you when you have let go completely of muscular tension, of your thoughts, and you're just in the moment, still, silent, breathing, listening, aware, with no identity, no intention, no purpose, no agenda. We filled our lives with 24/7 news cycle, with a phone, with apps, with the internet. We filled our lives with these contracted processes, and all of them are tremendous and have great value, and it's astounding to behold. But just remember that each of those brings you even further into a contracted state, to the degree that you could put down the phone, turn off the TV, turn off the computer, and sit and be still and silent. You will have helped balance yourself and hopefully be in a happier, calmer state. So now we move into the nuts and bolts, the actual incremental release of muscular tension. And I don't spend a lot of time on these in these sessions, so if I move a little too quickly, my apologies, but I'd rather just give you the basic ideas for you to take and practice on your own. I highly recommend you practice. I recommend keeping a log, how much time you actually scan a day. I try to do an hour or 2 a day. I never want to let go of my contracted processes, but I force myself because I know it's good for me and it does balance me. So if you can put in some time, keep a journal, practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the better you will get at it. Until, which is my goal, someday I'll be able to just say to myself, expand, and I will instantly be able to let go. It's still a difficult process. It takes me more than that. I always say it takes about 15 minutes of scanning before I actually really let go. But that's because of habit. I've built a lifetime of habitually contracting. Contraction is good, but that's my go-to process. And what I'm trying to teach myself is the opposite, expansion, and make that a part of my life toolkit as well, to bring myself into balance. So we start with the face. I call these the muscular zones. The face is zone 1 on my count, and you can look in a mirror if it helps. Release all the tension in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. You just let those muscles go. We always start with the face because number 1, you can see it in the mirror. You can see the change, and you want to experience that change, register what it feels like so that you can come back to it when you want to. So it's also, our faces are very expressive. We know how to use them. So to change the state of your face is much easier than, say, relaxing your back, which is a little bit more complicated. So let's do that again. 3, 2, 1, release, and just register that feeling. That's scanning. That incremental release of muscular tension is the foundation of scanning. You can do that in any way you want. You can relax your back, you can relax your knees, your feet, all the zones I'm going to go through, and whatever feels right to you. But start somewhere, even if it's this. 3, 2, 1, release. Just touch base with that sense of release. Bring yourself to that sense of release. Say, I'm going to visit that. I've been contracting all day, all week, all month. I'm going to go visit the expansive process to bring myself into balance. So start anywhere. I'm going to recommend these zones, but do it in a way that suits you. Okay? Zone 2 is the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And that's usually for me a softening of the brow. I feel as though somebody's broken an egg over my head and it's kind of dripping down. You'll begin to identify what your sense of muscular release feels like as you practice. But just keep practicing. It'll get easier and easier. Zone 2, the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, let it go. So again, if this feels unfamiliar, if this release of muscular tension is foreign to you, that's perfectly natural. We don't spend a lot of time doing it. Typically, if we need to relax, we'll pay someone to help us expand. We'll go to a masseuse, a chiropractor, or we'll do what I call chemical expansions. We'll have a drink, a scotch or a beer, or we'll smoke a joint, or any number of things we have brought into our lives to help us expand, because instinctively we know we need to relax. We know it. We know it's good for us. But what this does, scanning, is it empowers you to take charge of that process. So you don't need to get to that drink or get to that joint or get to that masseuse or spend that $5,000 on a vacation. You can just do it anywhere, anytime. You have that power. It's very empowering. It gives you a sense of mastery over your life. So practice, practice, practice. Zone 3, the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And I will tell you as a side note, that the more nervous I am, the more fearful I am of whatever situation I'm in, the more difficult it is to expand, because my go-to process is contraction. If I feel like I'm in danger or in fear, I will contract. I will worry. I will think. I'll say, what do I have to do? I'll obsessively process an idea or look at something external and focus on that. That's my go-to reaction. But I'm trying to train myself, and it's been difficult. And I think it's difficult for most people to don't contract, expand. When you're in a situation that feels dangerous or frightful to you, try just letting go and relaxing. It's counterintuitive because it seems like you're dropping your guard. But in fact, it's the most effective way to face a challenging situation, because when you've released and let go and are calm and open and are observant, you really see the truth of the situation, what you do and don't need to do. Sometimes we think I need to do something when you don't really need to. Things will resolve themselves, or that particular issue is not really so important. So expansion is a whole other way to go, but you have to train yourself because instinctively we want to contract. Zone 4 is the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. I hold a lot of tension in my neck. And the next zone, the shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. Again, most of our tension is from putting ourselves on guard. We want to be prepared for whatever threats we may face. Life is scary. There's all kinds of emotional, physical, and mental dangers out there. We worry a lot. We obsess. We just had an election. People were very worked up about that. And we tend to use our muscles as a guard against danger, against being injured or harmed in some way. So you're reconditioning yourself to say the safest way to approach any problem is in a very relaxed state. And you're up against your own habits, but you can recondition yourself. So again, zone 4, the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. Followed by the shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. These sessions are counterproductive in a way to the scanning process because I'm talking a lot, which is contractive. It's necessary to convey the information, but when you are doing these sessions, enjoy the silence of not thinking or saying anything. Just concentrate on the muscular release. Zone 6 is the chest, stomach, and waist. I call it the plate of armor. Also an area which we tighten up when we're trying to protect ourselves. 3, 2, 1, and release. And just feel your stomach sort of let go. If you have any sort of stomach issues when you get tense, this is a good zone to relax. Any tension you can release anywhere in the body assists the healing process. If you're sick or injured, mentally, physically, or emotionally, relaxation helps your body heal itself. It allows it to come back to its natural state, its most powerful state, its most intuitive state. Your body works all the time to heal itself. Tension gets in the way of that process. When you can relax and release the musculature, bring yourself into a more expanded state, your body becomes healthier, your immune system is strengthened, whatever physical issues you're having are eased. A lot of physical issues are the result of overcontraction. So again, zone 6, chest, stomach, front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, and release. And take a moment to experience the change that's happening to you as you release even the smallest amount of tension. See if that's beginning to sweep over your body. Zone 7 is down the back and into the waist, the back, the pelvis. Actually, it's focusing mostly on the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, down the back and into the pelvic region. 3, 2, 1, and release. You may discover there are certain regions of your body that hold more tension than others. You may have a particular zone that you tend to put your tension into. So spend some extra time on that. Letting go can be frightening, scary, uncomfortable. We hold these positions because we're trying to protect ourselves, sometimes from an imaginary threat, sometimes a real threat, but sometimes imaginary, mostly imaginary. So letting go means making yourself vulnerable, open, available, which is frightening. But generally speaking, you're not at risk. If you're just sitting in your room scanning, there's no risk. So take the chance, move past that emotional habit, that fear of letting go, and do it by incrementally releasing tension. I'll just release 1%. How'd I do? Fine. How about another? Okay. Ease yourself into it. Your body's like a young puppy that you're trying to train. It's frightened, it's scared, doesn't know what you're doing, but as you persuade your body that you are trying to help, that you have good intentions, and that nothing harmful is going to come of this process, it will begin to trust your body, and it will let go. Again, down the back and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. I've been doing this for years, thousands of hours. I still get uncomfortable and scared when I start. I'm so habitually trained to stay contracted. We tend to walk around in a state of contraction as we face the world. Even in our sleep, we hold it together. We keep it together. And scanning asks you to let it fall apart. But the benefits are tremendous. The final zone is down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. The feet, as we know, are very sensitive. To the extent that you can let go of tension in your feet, you can go a long way towards healing yourself. As we know, the feet are very sensitive, and they also hold the nerve endings of a lot of the organs in our body. If you've ever seen any of those reflexology charts, different parts of the feet are connected to different organs, including our brain and spine and stomach and liver and everything. So if you can relax the feet, you can go a long way towards rejuvenating your entire system. The feet, 3, 2, 1, let them go and release. And again, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. And I do the count, and you can do whatever you want. You don't have to do the count or the snap, but I do the count because in the count, during the 3, 2, 1, I'm concentrating on the state of the particular muscle I'm focusing on. I'm kind of taking a reading of it. And on that snap, I let it go. The face, 3, 2, 1, and. So you're like a conductor of an orchestra. You're looking at this particular zone, you're focusing on it, and you're saying, go, do this. You're instructing your body to let go. Again, it's funny. If I say make a fist, you make a fist. And we're used to contracting upon demand. We're not used to relaxing on demand. So you're teaching yourself to let go. In a way, it's as active a process as contraction. It's just the reverse. So again, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and let it go, release. And just try to make that slight change. And if you feel it, pat yourself on the back. I did it. I did it. I let the feet go a little bit. I felt the tension, and I let it go. And never underestimate, as I said, the power of even the smallest release. My face, 3, 2, 1, release. I just released a little bit of tension, but I felt the difference. I felt the change. I felt the movement from contraction to expansion. That's scanning. Shifting yourself from a contracted into a more expanded state, however incrementally that might be. Clearly, the longest you spend with a scanning session, the further you'll go. But don't judge yourself for only spending 5 minutes on it. That's a benefit, any benefit. I say that because people get discouraged. I get discouraged sometimes because I'm not making any progress. I still feel tense. But it doesn't matter. If you started scanning and you believe in the practice, sometimes you'll put in longer sessions, sometimes you'll do short sessions. But you built a consciousness. You're starting to build a consciousness that you have the power to relax, to control. And you'll know that if I practice more, I'll get better at it. But if I can only practice a couple minutes a day, that's fine. I didn't used to practice at all. So you started down that path. I can now go, I've done 2-hour sessions, but I've built up to that because I see the benefit. And no matter how much resistance I experience in the process, and I get a lot of resistance from my mind in particular, it argues with me. Don't stop thinking. Don't stop obsessing. We need to think about this. We need to obsess about this. My body goes, don't relax. We need to be ready. We need to be ready for action. We need to guard ourselves. I get a lot of arguments from my body and my mind and my emotions, which want to stay hidden and protected. But I've learned now that I can keep knocking at that door and be persistent and break through to where those processes begin to release and let go. I stop thinking. I let go of muscular tension. But it's taken a while. It's taken a while. It's a discipline which requires practice. But I take great satisfaction in knowing I have that tool. I'll give you an example. Last night, I really couldn't sleep. I could not sleep. And, you need sleep. But these days, there's lots to worry about. But I know now that no matter how much my body wanted to just obsess and worry and fidget, I said, be still, be quiet, and begin the process of muscular release, starting with the face, zone 1, the top of the head, zone 2, the back of the head, zone 3, the neck, zone 4, zone 5, the shoulders, zone 6, chest, stomach, front of the waist, zone 7, down the back and into the pelvis, zone 8, down into the feet. I went through it once. I said, I don't feel any different. I'm just as worried. Do it again. Now I'm still uptight. Do it again. Keep going. Because I know now, I understand that the resistance I'm up against is the very reason I should persist, because I'm up against my own habit of contracting. And because I am a very contracted person, if it's been a long day, I got a lot I'm holding on to. But I can release it if, I stay with it. So that's what I recommend you do. I think it's been about a half an hour. I don't like to go longer than a half an hour. This session was pretty quick today. They're all quicker than I'd like, and I talk a lot more than I'd like because I want to convey the information, and it's a way, if you follow these sessions, of reinforcing how the technique works. If you ever have any questions, please DM me. I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss, the possibility of doing private sessions or whatever. There's never going to be a cost or a fee for this. This is not something I do. I gave it a name to identify it, to distinguish it as a technique, but this is something which I've benefited from tremendously, and I wish to share with anyone who might benefit from it as well. I think it's, for me, in my life, it's one of the most amazing processes I've ever come across. And again, I don't think I didn't invent this. We all instinctively know we need to relax, but it is a way to approach it, which makes it accessible. And I really recommend it. So that's all for today. I will post this on my Facebook page. If you've missed any of it or want to come in to the beginning, it'll be there for a day. I move it over to what's called the Sqanning Facebook page. If you do a search on Facebook, just search for Sqanning, and there I have more of the videos, or the most recent video. Every session is basically the same. I like the simplicity of the technique. I don't think it's a problem that it repeats itself, because I want to reinforce how simple it is and how important it is to keep practicing. So it'll be there as well. I end every session with rule number one. Rule number one, love yourself. If you want to expand, love yourself. Thaddeus Gola says love is the most fundamentally expansive act in the universe, because it involves opening up, letting go, and accepting what is, including who you are. This is what you were given. You're only going to get it once. Love it. Embrace it. Celebrate it. Whatever the flaws you might see, celebrate that as well, because it's the only way to truly be at peace in the world. When you have so much love in you that it's actually spilling out, please share it with others, because I guarantee you they will appreciate it. Have yourself a great week, a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.